One example of a verse where there's a small degree of uncertainty is Romans 8:28, very famous verse.
One of the papyri that I can see here, piece 46, has an extra theos, which is interesting. You said you had another example. We might.
Yeah, I thought it'd be interesting to give one kind of text critical example, just looking ahead to the second part of our conversation, to the thesis. So,
be interesting.
Many of your listeners will be aware of this, but some of them won't. We don't have. It is worth saying this out loud, I think, because it's often kind of unsaid and forgotten. Therefore, we don't actually have any of the original papyrus and parchment, whatever, on which the New Testament was written. So, the actual thing on which John or his secretary or whoever it was wrote the words, "In the beginning was the word," or "En arche en hologos," that was lost centuries, millennia ago. The autograph is the technical name for it. Like, a film star's autograph is something they sign with their own hand. The autograph of an ancient text is the thing that comes from the author's own hand, or from the hand of the person he dictated to. So we do not have these autographs, and therefore we have to reconstruct what the biblical authors originally wrote by comparing a whole range of different surviving manuscripts. And they sometimes disagree, and therefore we cannot ever be completely certain. One example of a verse where there's a small degree of uncertainty is Romans 8:28, very famous verse. I'll just again read it all through for you. So, for we know that for those who love God, he works all things for good. That'd be one way to translate it. It's unclear if there are two words for God or not. Some manuscripts have two words for God, some manuscripts have one. If there is only one word for God, it probably means basically this: for we know that all things work together for those who love God. All things are the subject of the verb of working, right? All things are doing the working, yeah? All things kind of by themselves work together for good. That's if there's only one word for God. If there's two words for God, it changes somewhat. If there's two words for God, it goes something like this: for we know that for those who love God, God works all things for good. Yeah? So God is actually working all things for good. It's not all things work together by themselves for good. It's God works all things together for good. This is in some ways, a really encouraging verse pastorally and personally, because whatever bad is going on in our lives, we know either that there is some good purpose in it, or that God is bringing things to some good purpose. It's also a really difficult pastoral verse, a verse which is very important not to use out of context, because it can be so kind of hurtful and destructive to tell someone who's in a really tragic situation, don't worry, God's going to work it for good. Well, that's not going to help someone. It's going to really hurt someone who's in a really difficult kind of grieving situation. And we must use this verse very carefully. But part of using this verse very carefully is understanding it, I think. And I argue in my thesis that at least probably there are these two words for God. So it's not that all things will kind of somehow incline towards a good conclusion. It's that God actively will be working all things to good, however difficult that may seem at the time. But probably also really important to say in the context of this verse that another aspect of using this verse carefully and appropriately is what does good mean? What is the good to which God is driving all things? It's not us necessarily having what we want. It's not us sort of feeling happy. It's not everything working out happily ever after. It's us being made more like Christ, both now and eternally. So I think it's quite encouraging to know that second word for God is there, and that all things are not just sort of somehow inclining by themselves in a positive direction, but God is actively driving all things to some good outcome.
Yeah. I think it's a good example. Actually, Craig Blomberg brought it up earlier on in an audio episode.
Right.
And he didn't bring up the textual variant, but he said that like synageo is an intransitive verb, it cannot take any object. So therefore we have to take panta as an instrumental by all things.
So who does he think the subject is then?
Then he says that we need to understand that is God.
Okay, yeah. So okay, yeah.
So you technically agree. It's it's very interesting that he does that. I think it's Museo Silva in his big book, the New International Dictionary of Theology and Exegesis. He says that there are two options. We can have either subject, like Panther can be the subject, or it can be God, either understood. He doesn't bring the textual variant into it, which is quite interesting because it is one of the papyri that I can see here. Which is piece 46 has an extra ho theos, which is interesting.
As do Alexandrinus and Vaticanus. So it's actually quite a lot of early evidence for it.
Which is really interesting, which we'll get into what that mean in a little bit.
Sure.
I think it is interesting also that if it's correct and I think Craig is correct, is that this intransitive, like it cannot be like God works in all things, but for good is that it has to be understood like God by all things or in all things, maybe temporal, maybe the best one here.
Yes, throughout all things, whatever happens, yeah.
Yes, and Craig also says that gives a much more realistic understanding of what God is doing in our lives with all the suffering we might encounter.
Yes, so there's at least two questions there. What's the subject? So what's doing the working? Is it God, as Craig and I think, or is it the things themselves? And then if you think it's God, what are the tapanta? What are the all things doing in the sentence? Are they the object? So, just like, I lift the cup, God works the things for good. Or is it more, as Craig suggests, God works without a direct object? God just generally works through in all things. I think both those points are helpful because I think theologically and pastorally, I sort of want to, and there's always a fundamental paradox here, I want to affirm that God's in control, like God's omnipotent, nothing's ever bigger than God, no problem is ever bigger than God. But I don't want to say the terribly sad things that happen in our lives, the natural disasters, the serious illnesses, the evil done by people, I don't ever want to say that's good. I'm even nervous about language like tool in God's hands. I'm quite nervous about that language. And therefore I think the sort of saying that certainly the bad things themselves don't do anything good. God does good things. Secondly, God doesn't directly use the bad things. I'd much rather say that God is always working for good in and through whatever is happening. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I think that it's a very complex discussion because there are many things, if you want to have like a whole doctrinal and like a whole Pauline theology on this, we need to take much more than this one verse into account. And also like if you want a full biblical doctrine on this, it becomes even more complex because there are some Old Testament texts where God is explicitly using like for example, Joseph's narrative is very important. Or they intended it for evil, but I used it for good.
Yeah, indeed. No, I think we want to bring in lots of different passages. Absolutely, yeah.
So I think it's very important because I think it's often misunderstood, this verse, and also sometimes, and I think as you already pointed out, it's sometimes used with very little pastoral care. It's like,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that is very unfortunate, and a lot of people have got hurt because it's been used like everything is just gonna work as well out well. But it's like, of course, with God's intent, but it's still like that's not what you need to hear when you're suffering.
No.
And I'm not sure that that's exactly what Paul is saying here. If Craig is correct, his interest, and I think he probably is. He is a very seasoned scholar. That there's probably it would be complicated to take this out as like it is God that is using things to work it for good. Eschatologically, ultimately in the restored creation, which is an important theme of Romans 8 in itself, which I'll be talking more about in my thesis, but then we will get off track.
Thank you for watching this clip. If you enjoyed it, you can find another one by clicking just over here, Or if you want to watch the full episode and dive a step deeper, you can find a link in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.